Welcome to HealthTech Hustle. We exist to share stories of the brave entrepreneurs helping to solve the most important problems in digital health today. We interview top leaders in health tech and bring them onto our show each week to listen and learn from their story. With your host, Rodney Hu, founder of 209 Digital.
Hello and welcome to another very special episode of the HealthTech Hustle podcast. My name is Rodney Hu. Today I'm joined by two very special guests, Ms. Joan Meléndez and Mr. Dawon Hawkins, COO. Joan has over 25 years of experience with the build and optimization of healthcare applications, specializing in perioperative anesthesia and trauma workflows. Joan created Xcelrate UDI with the goal of significantly improving patient safety at the point of care by leveraging the power of UDI, which stands for Unique Device Identifier, for medical devices, tissues, and supplies. So with that being said, I'm excited to have them both on and kind of share their journey with Xcelrate and kind of what they're working on. So that being said, welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you so much for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
No problem. So why don't we just jump into it, Joan? Why don't you just give a quick background of kind of who you are, how you got into healthcare, and how you came up with Xcelrate?
Sure. So, I worked in an operating room in order to develop an EHR system or to modify the EHR system so it worked really well within the workflow, and identified a lot of real significant holes in the system. So fast forward, UDI came into as a requirement, which is the unique device identifiers. And that's what medical providers have to use in order to document medical devices such as implants or sterile items that are used within an operating room area. And so new regulations came out surrounding, the requirements for a certified electronic healthcare record to be involved. And it was really overwhelming to the people, to the nurses, so, these new requirements, there's data elements. How am I I can't document all those. And then you have to validate that against, the FDA databases. And then, you have to add in, is it expired? Is it recalled? How can I easily report an adverse event? So there's so many new medical devices on the market that we really wanted to be able to identify how to help that. And it all stems back with, just really being involved in an operating room since about 2005.
Nice. So your background, did you come from more the healthcare side or more the technology side?
I came from really both. My mom's a nurse. So I started working in a doctor's office when I was 15 years old. So at that point is when I was able to really identify concerns with how electronic health record was being manipulated, because it was right in the beginning. I don't want to tell you how old I am, but so when we were looking at these medical devices in particular, and so many new medical devices are on the market, right? Medical devices are being, they have this, everybody knows that new term, that we're using for new, because we have these new vaccines that we're having to monitor, but there's a lot of new processes and they are grandfathered in some instances. So how do you track? How do you prevent? How do you communicate? It's, really important. Patient safety is the most important thing for us. And, and for us, if you can't have a safe patient journey without having a safe nurse or a safe provider journey as well.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that really interests me with like the whole health tech industry is like the people's journey on how they end up creating their company or creating the product or service that they want to bring to the market. So can you kind of walk us through that stage from having that idea and then kind of creating that and what that process was like for you?
Oh yeah, it was an eye-opening journey because I'm a consultant, so I specialize in workflow and I help the hospital work within their electronic health record. So I analyze their workflows. I make sure that however that EHR can works best for their particular workflow. So in 2018, UDI became a required documentation from the manufacturer side. They had to include the UDI, the unique device identifier, on the packages of medical devices. There was like a 600% increase in recalls within a few year period. So, and it's all because we're doing these novel devices where they're basing it on something else. So it's how can we get that communication back quicker? So there's a lot of these pitfalls that we were seeing. And so I had to design the system that the hospital had, right? That's what my job was, is to show them what they would need to do in order to document and build the items within their inventory in order to meet the certification requirements. And I had everybody left crying. It was in a very emotional encounter. We can't do this. We don't have time to do this. It's taking us 6 minutes to document as it is. You have to do something for us. You can't let us go through this. So that's how my application was born, was my nurses. I just couldn't see them going through that. And it was nurses, it was the analysts who support the application as well, because there was a team of 5 analysts supporting 45 hospitals and growing. The organization kept on building, but you still had the same 5 analysts supporting all these hospitals. So it wasn't fair to them either, because they had to now manage all of these new devices on the way that this particular EHR required them to do. So in less than 5 seconds, we're able to parse all of the data using the manufacturer barcode. Again, we're using the federal required barcode labeling to parse the data directly into the hospital's EHR. So no longer that 6 minutes, there's not the tracking. We're able to produce real-time reports. If there's a problem in the field with a medical device where it's failing, like staplers were failing, there's a recall. How do recalls happen? Recalls, because some things are failing, something's happening in order to get it to an event of a recall. So if the manufacturers knew in real time when these items were failing, they'd be able to react quicker. So again, our application is able to do that. We're able to now satisfy that nurses need to be able to pay attention to the patient safely, because we're providing recalled items that have been recalled up till they could be recalled at 1:15 today, and we would know about it in our system immediately. Where it's all mailed, it's snail mail, it's first class mail, and it goes to whoever at the hospital. So by the time it trickles down to that surgical area, who knows? So there's all these patients' safety concerns that the nurses are going through. And then you're telling them, oh yeah, and then you have to document these 13 fields. So, again, that's how we came to be, because we saw that need and really wanted to be able to help the nurses. And again, it's all about patient safety.
Nice. So at the very core, it's all about patient safety, but there's an entire workflow, there's an entire process to make sure that that process is optimized. And that's kind of where you come in as a consultant, as having that background. And nurses is who you're actually really helping to kind of help with the patient safety. You got to help the nurses. And so one question I have for you is, like, when you're starting a company and you're trying to grow it and you're trying to get it out to the market, like, you can't do it yourself. And so how big is your team, and what kind of pieces did you have to put into place so that you are able to maximize your time and energy? And kind of like, what are your roles and responsibilities? Because I know as an entrepreneur, you wear many hats.
Yeah, so I've had a unique, challenging kind of journey, I think. I developed an application. This is my second attempt at this, because I had hired a developer who had stolen my application. So I had all those hurdles to overcome, and then feeling like, why am I failing when I'm trying to provide a good service? How can we educate the nurses about, what is a medical device, UDI, how they can use that, safely. So I have all these things going on. And with our the challenges that I had to overcome, I was really, really lucky to have Debbie as my assistant. She's been with me. I don't even know how many years. Isn't that horrible? I should know our anniversary. She's the longest relationship I've ever had. So she's the driving force behind me. And then, God threw Dawon in my lap. So, which was just, heaven sent. So he's got a really rich background about training and education and partnering up and diversity and making sure that, as we're growing our team, we're doing everything we can in our power to be as diverse as we can as well. We just were certified Women's Minority Business Enterprise, which is a huge achievement for us. So really excited about that. But we have a small team. It was me up until last year. So I'm very blessed at the team that we have.
Nice. So it started with you. Shout out to Debbie, who's been with you from the beginning.
Yes.
But you knew that you had to go out and hire expertise, bring on other people. And so
Yes.
That's kind of where Dawon comes in, right? He's a COO. So I kind of want to give you an opportunity, Dawon, to kind of just share your background and share your role and responsibilities and the value that you bring to the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks for having us on. It's really important that we get the message out to your listeners of the importance of medical device safety. And I met Joan just serendipitously a couple of years ago. We just happened to have the same trainer, and our sessions crossed paths, and we struck up conversations in between time, and that formed a really good working relationship and friendship. But what I'll share with you in terms of my role and whatnot is Joan operates from the goodness of her heart, and I know that sounds a little esoteric, but that's really the mindset that she has. As an entrepreneur, her focus was, how do I get a solution out there that mitigates problems for patients, problems for healthcare facilities, problems gaps that exist significantly in our healthcare industry that have dire consequences to patients that are already dealing with so many other things with their health, that this just adds additional layer onto. So she created this company from that really idyllic perspective. The challenge of it is, as she mentioned earlier, is that as most folks who are in the business of creating their own company and whatnot, having the right people around you is perhaps number two outside of having a good idea. Number one is having a good idea. Number two is having the right people around you. And there were just a lot of people that saw the monetary value that her solution could bring, but not necessarily being able to do it in a way that was in alignment with her values. And so the first thing that she and I talked about was building up her infrastructure, making sure that whomever she brought on from a code building perspective, technology perspective, that we're building things in a solid way, making sure that the business operations was sound. So how we share files, how we work, the way that we engage with one another, I wanted to make sure that our foundation was really solid with the tools that we're using, the relationships that we have, the partnerships that we established in order to do the work. We're in such a way that it made things easy for us to work with one another and get our product out the door. I think the other part of it is just having a deeper understanding around regulations that are really driving this particular industry. Joan is an expert at that. She's been working with directly with the FDA, with learning communities and manufacturers directly and hospital and healthcare facilities for a very long time. So she has that on lock, and now it's the opportunity to take that into the solutions that we're putting forth. I think the other thing, once we were able to get that infrastructure established, the next thing that we needed to focus on was sales. We've been fortunate enough that we're not necessarily in startup phase. We have clients. We're in over 400 plus facilities across the United States. We have our eyes set on international expansion as the UDI regulation is growing internationally into other markets. We're primed and ready to explore that and offer our solution. But sales is a really important thing. So we had to think about, what does our website look like? What does our social presence look like? Do we have an Instagram, a LinkedIn account where people can find us not only through the grapevine, but through targeted, advertising and marketing initiatives. And then more importantly, building a team that can represent Xcelrate UDI and talk about that we bring, understand the marketplace that we're interacting with, and get to decision makers. Because again, our primary client base is the healthcare facility. It's the hospitals, it's the surgical centers, it's the medical centers. And within those facilities, there are multiple decision makers. Our application, although it's used primarily within the surgical room or the surgical facility, there's application to it from a compliance perspective, from a risk perspective, from a supply chain perspective. And so our entry into the market, and therefore an entry into these healthcare facilities, can be quite different depending upon with whom we're talking with. So it was really about building that infrastructure, then focusing on our sales initiatives, and then activating against it and having people that are, number one, bought in to our vision and our product holistically. And then number two, really looking for people that are incredibly skilled. As Joan mentioned, we just got our certification as being women-owned and minority-owned. And diversity and inclusion is an incredible part of our brand. It's an incredible part of our culture. And if you look around the medical industry, you don't see Black and brown faces. And I hate to be so crass, but you don't see that within the medical industry. And so this is an opportunity for us to have a really big impact, not only in how we engage with our community, but also the presence that we're demonstrating by having a female-led healthcare technology business, right, in a multi-billion-dollar industry, which is the healthcare industry, that is impacting significant change that's saving lives every day. That's huge.
Awesome. That's a great answer. And two words that really stick out to me as I was listening to you talk is, one, regulations, is knowing the rules, knowing how to play the game. But two is relationships, not even just with your customers and your target audience, but the relationships in order to grow a business and do it in a healthy fashion. And so that's kind of why I see that you're on the team. But one question I had, either one of you can take it, is how are you guys actually starting the conversations? I know you said the clients are healthcare facilities and those kind of organizations, but how are you guys going about starting those kind of conversations?
Well, it starts with just somebody reaching out, initially, this is where Dawon has taken us. But initially for me, somebody just, hey, I saw what your application was doing. Can you explain it to me? And that's how organically it built. So now I'm going to turn it over to Joan, because now he can really go into what, where we're going now, because we're in discussions with some big manufacturers, so that, we created another application called UDI Clearinghouse. Again, it's all about how can we quickly provide information about medical devices.
Yeah, I'll pick it up from there. Again, as Joan mentioned, a vast majority of our clients have come to us organically, either through direct connections from consulting gigs that Joan has worked on, or through they've had exposure to Joan or a company through things like international learning communities around UDI adoption, or conferences that are in the marketplace specifically around medical device management. But as we take it a little step further, we're getting more into targeted sales activity. So obviously there's a grassroots of just pounding the pavement, identifying facilities across the United States and now abroad, and then engaging with folks throughout the business, finding their contact information, reaching out to them directly through direct sales efforts and things of that nature, to really just spread the word around what is UDI, what is UDI barcode scanning, what value do we provide to the healthcare facility, and garnering some interest in our ability to help meet some of those needs. I think the biggest challenge that we have is, and I think a lot of people who are entrepreneurs and building their own business, is articulating their value proposition to their intended customer. And so we have to have really in-depth conversations all the time about, what is the value that we're offering? Who is our target customer? Why would they be interested in our kind of solution? How much would they be willing to pay for something like this? What is the opportunity cost if they don't have our solution in place? And, what does that mean to that particular organization? And how can we connect the dots so that when we're engaging with a prospective buyer, we're able to tell that story in such a way that they're really compelled to A, want to know more, B, to view our application in action, and then C, have a meaningful discussion around what our application can do in their facility.
Okay, nice. And so what piece of content would you say has probably been the most effective at educating the target audience and really just portraying the value that you guys have?
I would say our demos, to be honest with you. It's one thing to talk about. It's one thing to talk about what you can do with a prospect. It's another thing to show them. If you've ever seen, what's that show called where all the inventions are on?
Shark Tank.
Yes, Shark Tank. That's the word it was on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't quite grasp it. But part of what makes that so impactful, of bringing a solution that is filling a gap, et cetera, which is what our solution is doing, is showing it in action. Now, of course, there are, other things that need to happen in order to get to that. You have to have a compelling, kind of elevator speech that really articulates, what is it that, why would someone want to learn more? But the nail in the coffin for us and our potential customers is specifically showing them what our application does. As Joan mentioned it earlier, when we're talking with clinicians, these are surgeons, these are or directors or managers, these are nurses that are in the surgery room, literally typing all of the information into the patient's health record, right? So you go in for a hip replacement and everything that's being used on you and in you is documented in your record from the hospital. Then when you get discharged, you get all that paperwork and all of that stuff. Most people don't even think about what's included within that book of paperwork, but it's your health record. It is what the hospital did for you, all the medicines you took, all the medical devices that they used on you or in you, like Band-Aids or staples or mesh or ball joints or valves or screws or rods. All of those things are captured in your medical records. And for everything to be captured in your medical record, there is a nurse or a clinician that is physically in the surgery room typing all that stuff up. And to Joan's point earlier, typing up the information that's required into the health record, typing that information can take somewhere in between 3 to 6 minutes per item. So if you've got 10 screws times 6 minutes, you're typing for a whole hour, just typing in the information like the lot number, the SKU, the date that it was produced or manufactured, and all of these other little details. And as you can imagine, if you're typing straight for an hour, guess what's going to happen? Some things are going to get mixed. And so we are able to, with a scan of a barcode, using our barcode gun and our application, we're able to take all of that typing down to practically nothing. So from 6 minutes down to like 5 seconds, maybe 8 seconds tops, depending upon the client's patient record system that they're using. But what that does is you scan, it automatically captures and parses all of that data into the health record. That's huge, because when nurses hear that, when OR managers hear that, when surgeons hear that, what that means is, wow, you mean to tell me that I don't have to wait for an hour or an hour and a half for my nurse to stop keying all this stuff in so that we can then move on to our next patient, because that's what they have to do. That means I can service more patients. And now during COVID, where elective surgeries are significantly reduced, almost all the patients that are in our hospitals are high-risk patients, either for COVID or because of other really important life-saving surgery needs. if they're bogged down with administrative tasks, that means that that's diminishing the quality of care they can provide to their patients. And we solve that. So when we're able to articulate that, and then they can see it in action, and we show them, hey, I'm going to take this item here, I'm going to scan this barcode, and then you're going to see in real time how it updates the record. Bing, 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 those lights start going off, and say, how do I get this in my hospital right now?
Okay, hold on. So yeah, we were talking about the content and kind of how you're creating content to kind of educate and build relationships with your target audience and the importance of that. But one question I had that I was thinking about as you're talking is like, what's been the biggest hurdle for you guys as far as like a company and sharing the value of what you guys are doing? Because this entrepreneurship, this growing a business thing isn't easy. And so I'm interested in what are the obstacles you guys had to overcome and how have you guys went about overcoming?
Well, I think Joan and I have slightly different points, equally valid, but different points of view. So I'll let Joan go first, and then I'll come in with things from my perspective.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So, just adoption. So we're talking about regulations, right? The manufacturer is supposed to follow certain labeling regulations. UDI is part of that regulation. But these regulations are really kind of like recommendations. Same thing with recalls. People don't realize that recalls are really just voluntary. They're not started or by the FDA, for example. The manufacturer is the one who's doing this voluntary recall. So there's a lot of things that people really don't understand, and they now know that term novel because we have this novel virus, right? So novel, meaning new. So for a medical device, there's like a Band-Aid, for example, that had, a certain product code of a Band-Aid. And then they saw that the inner parts of the Band-Aid was working really well on bone graft. So now it's an implant. But they were able to push that through without a lot of rigors because it's a new novel usage for that Band-Aid. So it's just people to really get to understand the regulations and what they're about. And, and we developed like UDI Clearinghouse, I mentioned briefly, so that providers can go and look in one spot to see. A recall was that they just got the posting of took 45 days from it getting notified to the FDA from the manufacturer until it got posted. I just saw one for 117 days. So it's all these delays that are adding on. And again, I'm competing with regulations that are kind of like not really, they're nice to haves, even though they are regulations. And some EHR companies actually tell the hospitals that, don't worry about it. They haven't started enforcing it. It's really not measurable, but it's the right thing to do. This is all about patient safety. That's why the UDI came into play. It's not that somebody just, created something to do something that was going to take people more time to do. UDI save lives. We're able to scan that UDI. We're able to notify if it's immediately recalled, able to notify immediately if it's expired. So I come from that entire regulated area saying, how do I have to prove, or why do I have to prove that this is important? And Dawon?
Yeah, so ours kind of coincided with one another. So on the regulation side, think of it this way. You have a VIN for your car, right? And if something goes wrong with your car, there is a way for the manufacturer to let you know, hey, you need to replace this fuel pump. But if you get an implant in your hip or your heart or your hearing or ear for hearing, how do manufacturers connect with you? That's a big problem because we have UDI, which is the way that manufacturers can trace from their facilities all the way to patients. But there are vendors, we're missing vendors like Xcelrate UDI who actually fill that gap. And so for us, in answering the question of what are some of the biggest barriers, we are on a very early stage. If you think about from an innovation perspective, we've created the first certified solution that is on the market that fully complies with all of the Office of National Coordinator requirements, the first and only vendor that is able to do that. But the challenge that we run into is that oftentimes the issue with medical devices only gets to certain individuals within the healthcare facility. You have risk and audit folks within the healthcare facilities who see that they're not meeting the regulations for patient documentation and et cetera. You have supply chain folks who see that, we've had certain supplies that were never supposed to be in our inventory being implanted in people and they're having problems with them. And you have the legal department who is also seeing all of the litigation from these patients who have had something left in their body, implanted in their body that's causing them harm, and now they're being litigated. But what you don't see is the people that are actually doing the work, the nurses, the doctor, the OR managers, the folks that are in the room, they don't even know that a solution like ours exists. So they've in a sense taken for granted the fact that, my work is supposed to be this hard, and I guess we'll just have to wait until something bigger comes along. Well, something bigger is here, and that's Xcelrate UDI. We have the solution. And so, I think the biggest challenge that we have is getting to the right people to tell them that you no longer have to bear the brunt of these frustrations of not knowing what inventory you have, not knowing where it is located in the healthcare facility, not knowing when or if it is used on a patient, and then last but not least, eliminating the manual documentation that takes so much of your time away from providing quality care to patients. Our solution does that. And the challenge that we have is getting to the right people and having the right conversation so that we can articulate that in a way that resonates with them, so that they're not seeing this as, another solution or another software that I have to buy that's going to add workload, as opposed to this is actually solving so many problems that you have at your healthcare facility with just one application.
Okay, interesting. Dang. I feel like you guys cover like everything as far as like running a business, growing a business. You guys dot your I's and cross your T's. And I definitely see the value of like what you guys are doing in the healthcare technology space, more specifically, and like optimizing the workflows. We're coming up towards the end of the episode, and I usually like to end it on a little lighter note. We've been covering a lot of super complex topics and ideas. So this is a little fun exercise that I like to end each session with. And so since we got two people, when I ask the question, we'll have Joan go first, and then Dawon can share his answer next. I just have a list of questions, and then I'll ask them, and then you guys just give me whatever answer you come up with. All right, so question number 1, what is your favorite book of all time?
I just picked up a new book yesterday. I love Obama. I love all the Obamas. So I just picked up The Promised Land, and so that's right now my favorite new book. Okay.
My favorite book is The Color Purple. It's such a powerful journey of self-acceptance through immense adversity.
Okay, nice. I was about to say you prefer the book over the movie. Question number 2, who's the most influential person in your life or career?
I think you're on mute, Joe.
Oops, I did. I just muted myself accidentally. For my career, I really owe, me and being able to help to one of my nurses, Jeannie Counts. She refused to work with me. I was an IT person, even though I was a medical assistant. That's not a nurse. That was like a 2-year program versus, the 4-year. And then I was coming into the hospital, and she didn't want to have anything to do with the design of their EHR being built out for surgery, because I never worked in the operating room. So she trained me how to circulate, how to scrub, how to run central sterile. I mean, I know an operating room. I know the workflow of an operating room. I was trained to be able to provide each step. So I really thank God for Jeannie in my life.
And I would say my mentor, Terry Johnson, goes way back, more than 20 years. And we were in HR together. He was a leader in a different department. And just as a Black male that was in a position of leadership when I was early in my career, seeing that and being able to have somebody take me under their wing and help me to understand the importance of integrity in the workplace and how to harness your own ambition, I think, I really credit him for a lot of that work.
Awesome. Number 3, what is one goal you want to accomplish, say next year, 2021?
Well, hopefully 2020, we can play a role in at least the use of the COVID vaccines. Again, our application is very unique where we don't require any build and we're able to scan in real time any of the COVID vaccines. And, people think, oh, yay, I got COVID vaccines. There's storage. There's a lot of data elements that are required for documentation that you have to do until that is used. And then what if there's an adverse event? Oh, and then it's a dual process for the immunization. So I really see our application taking a significant role next year.
Mm-hmm. And to piggyback on that, because Joan is a brainchild, she's the one who's able to come up with all of these ideas and use cases for application and building it further. My sights are set on international expansion. I would love for us to be in between 3 to 5 different countries by the end of next year. I see that as being a very strong possibility as UDI adoption and regulations are really taking hold, and there are regulatory agencies outside of the United States that actually have the actual authority to be able to enact and enforce and penalize hospitals and healthcare facilities who are not living up to the regulations, which we don't have here in the United States. So that's where my head's at.
Oh, okay. Dang, international. I like it. And then last one, what is one piece of advice you would give to your 20-year-old self?
Just, what I would tell my 5-year-old self, that train going up that hill, just keep going. It's just keep on, reaching for your dreams and keeping and being honorable and doing what you can. And loving people like my buddy Dawon. I'm so thankful and blessed that I was able to do something right in my life to be able to encourage these relationships too. So
yeah, I have to agree with Joan. Looking back on all of the last 20 years of my adult life, I don't think I would change a thing because those are the things that make me the person that I am today. I think what I would tell myself, my younger self is, again, what Joan is saying, to keep at it. Keep trusting yourself, believing yourself, making decisions that are integrity based, treating people how you want to be treated, and just know that the work that you're putting in, it does pay off. Because I have to say, through this opportunity, I get to work with my very best friend, Joan, every single day. And it's incredible to be able to work with people that you care about. We're an organization of 5 people, but we're all connected. We support one another. We're in different geographic locations, but we're all tied to the same things. We are deeply committed to this, to this vision and to this product. And we're all bringing our unique talents together in order to make it happen. So if I knew then that this would be the output, I think it would probably allay a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of, concern and anxiety that I've experienced in my younger days, in my younger career.
Awesome. I think that's an excellent piece of advice from both of you. And I think that's a great way to kind of end today's episode. Joan, Dawon, I just really want to thank you guys for jumping on. It's my goal to really just find the brilliant minds in healthcare technology industry and really figure out what they're doing, what you guys are doing to really help with the whole patient journey and disrupting the entire healthcare industry. And so it's my goal to just kind of pick your brains, allow you guys to share strategy, tools, and tips. And there's definitely a lot of valuable insight in this interview. I know I learned a lot, so I guarantee my audience will learn a lot as well. So just want to say thank you for just jumping on and really just sharing your guys' journey and what you guys are working on.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. It was really a great journey. Thank you.
No problem. Last but not least, where can people learn more about Xcelrate UDI and connect with you guys if they have any more questions?
Yeah. Joan, do you want to take this?
Sure. You can reach us at info@xcelrateudi.com. It's XCELRATEUDI.com. Please, visit our website. We have educational materials as well about UDI adoption, so that people can learn about the federal regulations in the states at least.
And I would just add, listen, beyond just the product that we provide, if you're, somebody that's interested in building your healthcare technology and you just want to, pick our brains, we're open to that. So this is not just a unilateral, we're here for sales, but we're here to really make a difference in the healthcare industry. And we really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about us on your platform.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll be sure to include all the links in the show notes and whatnot. But yeah, that ends today's episode. Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of HealthTech Hustle with Rodney Hu, founder of 209 Digital. Tune in next week for another interview with an expert leader in digital health.